Don't you want revenge on the people who didn't believe in you? Don't you want revenge on your enemies? Don't you want revenge on everybody who abandoned you? People who thought you were worth nothing and worthless?
The modern zeitgeist will have you believing that this is what a hero looks like. But there's a ghost that haunts the collective memory of Westerners today. And what once stood as the symbol of self-overcoming, the warrior, is dead. This isn't the caricature you see in Marvel films, sanitized and quippy, but the real thing. The samurai who spent decades mastering a single sword stroke, or the monk who chose poverty over comfort, the knight who rode towards certain death because something inside of him demanded it. These figures understood something we've forgotten in the West, and that's that life isn't something that happens to you, it's something you become. Nietzsche called it the philosophy of becoming, not passively existing, but actively sculpting yourself from reality as if it were stone. And this isn't narcissism or delusion. It's the understanding that a human being can transcend their circumstances, their fears, their very reality, and birth something higher from within themselves. But walk through any city today and watch every passerby in a world of their own. Endless streams of half-conscious faces bathed in blue light. Watch people work jobs that mean nothing in buildings that suffocate them for paychecks that never quite satisfy. Watch the riots and the discourse collapse into meaningless noise and see the death of conviction replaced by the tyranny of irony. The heroic ideal isn't just dead. We've become so comfortable with its corpse that we've forgotten it ever lived. But it once stood for something sacred, excellence, self-overcoming, and aristocracy. This matters not because we should all become sword-wielding ascetics, the pinnacle of modern weaponry has come far since then, but because without a framework for human excellence, without one single orientation for the soul, we become something less than human. We become, as Nietzsche would later describe, the last man. The heroic ideal is the belief that humans have untapped potential. Not the
Good morning to the world, man, out there. Yeah, come here and check it out real quick. So I was just checking my phone out. Here's some charges on my payment processor. These are not all today. This just 5,001.
or even,
So I've been grinding lately.
but something far more primal. It's the philosophy of self-overcoming. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche writes, "I love him whose soul is deep even in the wounding, and who may perish from a single thing, from excess of love." This is not sentiment. This is the recognition that the very capacity that could destroy you, your depth, your hunger for meaning, your willingness to be shattered by reality, is also the only thing that creates genuine human greatness. The warrior mentality that embodied this ideal wasn't about violence for its own sake. It was about engagement with reality at its most demanding. Miyamoto Musashi, perhaps the greatest swordsman who ever lived, spent his final years not in glory, but in a cave, writing about the nature of combat and consciousness. His last work, The Book of Five Rings, wasn't a manual for victory. It was a meditation on the erosion of ego through perfect execution. Musashi wrote in The Way of the Warrior, "When you come to either or, you quickly choose and move on. Today is victory over yesterday. Tomorrow is victory over today. Continuous victory is possible through the knowledge that there is only the moment." This is what separated the warrior mentality from mere ambition. The warrior doesn't seek victory as an endpoint. Instead, he seeks mastery of the moment itself. And in that mastery, something changes inside of him. This philosophy ran through the veins of every genuine tradition. The Christian monk who took vows of silence was engaged in the same fundamental act, the willing confrontation with one's own emptiness, in the belief that something greater could be born. But before the chaos of the world, there was the child at play. Watch him build worlds from nothing, completely absorbed. He doesn't know he exists as something separate from his experience. He hasn't yet felt the need to perform, he simply is. Julius Evola called this active being, or the purest state of human consciousness. The child acts according to his nature with complete sovereignty, an undivided relationship to himself and to reality. Evola says, the world must be returned to individuals and their actions restored to their freedom. This wasn't a political statement, it was instead a comment on consciousness itself. The child's awareness hasn't yet been colonized by external systems. He hasn't internalized the voice that tells him he's being watched. Instead, he acts purely within his nature. But then something happens. The mind develops the capacity for abstraction, for seeing itself, and the individual becomes aware of themselves as an object, something that exists not just as pure experience, but as a thing that can be observed. Carl Jung understood this transition as absolutely essential to what he called the development of the self, not the ego, as the ego is a mask, the persona, the constructed identity. The self is something far deeper and far more difficult to reach. You encounter your shadow for the very first time as lived reality, not as concept, but as the horrifying recognition that you contain aspects of yourself that directly contradict the image you're trying to maintain. Marcus Aurelius was perhaps the most powerful man in the world. He could have lived in absolute luxury, surrounded by yes-men and pleasure. Instead, he spent years on the northern frontier writing meditations, philosophical reflections on virtue and mortality, while an empire collapsed around him. Dostoevsky was sentenced to death, stood before the firing squad, experienced the absolute certainty of his own annihilation, then at the last moment, exiled to Siberia instead. And in that labor camp, stripped of everything that makes life comfortable, he discovered the bottomless depths of human nature. He emerged from that darkness and wrote Notes from the Underground, Crime and Punishment, The Brothers Karamazov, literature still praised for its quality today. They show a radical sensitivity to beauty, meaning, and truth, combined with an iron will that categorically refused to surrender. Picture it, paradise. Complete provision, no scarcity, no suffering, and no death. The Garden of Eden, as it's described in Genesis, are two humans in perfect communion with their Creator, with themselves, and with creation. And yet, Genesis 3 opens with the serpent. He approaches Eve and plants a seed of doubt. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? The woman corrects him. They can eat from any tree except one, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. And then the serpent delivers the original temptation. You will not certainly die, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Eve, from her choice, however, does not receive utopia. Instead, she kills the very thing that gives life meaning, thus birthing the fundamental narrative of Genesis. Every hero's journey begins with a fall. The garden represents undivided being. The hero exists in harmony with the world, with himself, and with the transcendent order that gives meaning to existence. Because the hero cannot return to unconscious unity, Paradise Lost cannot be regained by going backward. The only path is through the wasteland of separation, through the confrontation with what he's become, and through the voluntary death of the false self. Nietzsche saw this coming. He saw a world emerging in which God was dead, but the hunger that God satisfied remained. and into that vacuum he prophesied would emerge the last man. Nietzsche writes, "Behold, I teach you the last man. What is love? What is creation? What is longing? What is a star?" Thus asks the last man and blinks. The earth has become small, and on it hops the last man who makes everything small. And he blinks. That's the image. The last man blinks at the question. And not because he can't understand it, but because the question itself has become incomprehensible to him. Love, creation, longing, these are threats to his comfort. These are dangers to be managed. The fall, then, is not primarily moral, it's ontological. It's the fall into a state of being in which authentic experience is replaced with simulation. And the price we've paid is incalculable, the death of the sacred that justified existence. The hero finds himself in the pit of nihilism. Complete and utter despair. And this is the moment. Not the moment of resignation, but the moment of recognition. He sees what he's become, and he refuses it with every fiber of his being. Not metaphorically. The entire structure of the self that was built on compromise, consumption, and the performance of living, it has to die. Hafiz knew what this meant when he said, "I wish I could show you, when you are lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being." This light was never on the outside. It was buried beneath layers of conditioning, dormant after years of burdensome distraction. In this way, the rebirth is simply the reawakening of what was always there. But this is not surrender in the sense of laying down your weapons. This is surrender in the sense of releasing your grip on an illusion. Your thoughts are not yours. They arise from the machinery of human consciousness. This recognition is when rebirth actually begins. The accumulation that defined you, the achievements, the possessions, the identities, all revealed as a play. And once you see this, you don't stop acting. You act with terrifying clarity. Now the illusions crumble away. The ideals that structured your life, they're revealed instead as maps you mistook for terrain. You stopped living and started following directions instead. The warrior enters the world again knowing precisely what it is, knowing the systems are human constructions. The systems he once believed in have no authority except what he grants them. The warrior stands in the decadence of society and he engages anyway. We live in a moment when this knowledge is essential. The systems are sophisticated enough to keep you asleep your entire life and comfortable enough to make waking seem irrational. Those who walk through fire, who reject the seductive numbness of modernity, they discover what the culture denies. Life met with full consciousness is infinitely beautiful, challenging, and real. They rediscover the heroic ideal.